conquer some of the traumas and heal from them. We've met and done a lot of things together to try to do those things, including going to the jungles of Peru, going to the jungles of Costa Rica to work with certain plant medicines and have different guests on. And so, what we do with Airy Bros Radio is we try to present guests and have conversation with guests that we wish someone would have had with us when we were teenagers and present
Yeah.
information and topics to us to as I used to tell Jimmy, I'm just helping you, trying to help you avoid some of the potholes that I hit on the way. Sometimes you have to find those potholes and step in them on your own to figure out the right path. But that's kind of what we do here with Airy Bros. And so we are honored and excited. I haven't been this nervous for a guest in a minute. So
Don't mean I'm just another dude, man.
no, I know, but it's like I said, we've been Jimmy a little bit longer than me, but I've been tuned into you since about 2012 and have been following you and listening to your, I wouldn't even call them YouTube videos. I would call them lectures
Mm,
on YouTube, but there are over, I believe, 1,300 at this point,
there's a lot of them. I've been
talks.
doing it
And
for a long time. That's my service to social service work, you know?
yes, and we are very grateful for that, and we thank you for that, and we try to share those sorts of things with people. And that's the other thing is because Jimmy and I are a little bit more fringe than a lot of our friends and family. So sometimes the things that we say that we hear from you or other people, they think that we're crazy.
Hmm.
So the best way to present that information that we tell them is to just have the guest on. So we're going to have you say some of the things that we've been telling them for 10 or 12 years so they can hear it from you directly.
I'll do it.
Awesome. Well, we are live and we are joined tonight by Paul Chek. Paul is a holistic health practitioner, a wellness coach, a corrective exercise specialist, an educator with over 40 years experience. He's an author or a co-author of 11 books, including our favorite, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, also The Four Doctors. Uh, he is just a wealth of knowledge and information on any topic, a lot of things that we love to get down, and we are excited to talk to him about his new project, Spirit Gym. Paul, how are you, sir? Welcome to Airy Bros Radio. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you tonight.
I'm happy as a friggin' clam, and it's great to be with like kind, man.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. It is amazing. And like I was saying before we logged on, Jimmy and I were having a conversation probably sometime around 2010 and 2012. We were talking about probably about a family member relaying some kind of a story about going to the doctor or taking medical advice from someone. And Jimmy said to me, "Well, that's Paul Chek 101. Tell your doctor to take his shirt off." And so that
Yeah.
was my introduction. And then Jimmy also shared with me a copy, gave me a copy of How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. And so ever since then, it's been great to follow you and have the information that you share with everyone because it is life changing, and we try to just have that kind of ripple with our information to get out there and create ripple to hopefully do some better in the world and make the world a better place. So it's great to have you and connect with you tonight.
Well, thank you guys for doing that. I mean, I think that's really to maybe I'm jumping ahead, but Spirit Gym is really my realization. I started doing the research for it 10 years ago, but when COVID hit, I realized, okay, right now, most people haven't got a clue what's happening. They're going to fall hook, line, and sinker for this shit. And I've got to start a grassroots movement to help people wake up and get out of the, programmed mind because the game's getting serious, and I don't think I need to explain to you how serious it's gotten, but so I just basically just put all my efforts day and night. I've been working literally 6 days a week, 3:30 in the morning till often 7 o'clock at night. Um, cutting my workout short, just doing everything I could. And so I finally got volume one ready. It's a 15 volume book series, about 3,000 pages in total. It's really my magnum opus. So it's a synthesis of everything I've learned in my entire life, and from the physical to the metaphysical. And it's got all the lessons and guided practices and meditations and inner work to help anybody open up. And I was gifted by God with an artist that's absolutely mind-blowing. So ultimately, if people just look at the art in the book series, that'll split them open all by itself.
Well, Paul, we definitely want to jump into that and kind of the companion piece, but the bigger piece to how to eat, move, and be healthy, Spirit Gym. That said, I have to say, Rich said I gave him a copy of How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. I was handing those out like Bibles when I first found it. And for me, that book was the red pill. That was like, I thought that was as an athlete, growing up an athlete, feeling like I was broke off, that I needed time to just work in and finding that book. I thought that was the end road, but that was just the beginning. Little did I know it was going to get worse before it got better once I found that book. But that book really spoke to me. But there's a lot in that book to what you said before, and it was one of those things where I was just throwing it all up against the wall till I crashed because it was everything. It was trying to rotation diet, trying to work in, looking at my poop, trying to tell people that they're doing the wrong things, trying to stop working out, but I was still addicted to working out. So it like really spoke to me, and you were the first person who I found who took the spiritual aspect and the physical aspect and put it together. And
Mm,
that was like what made my heart sing, made my spirit sing. Cause I always felt that there was a disconnect between the two. And I always felt
mm,
my spirituality, which became strong because I went to a wrestling camp in the wilderness of Montana when I was 18, and it was a Christian wrestling camp. And I got into God for all the wrong reasons, to win wrestle
mm,
matches, and that was my main purpose. I would do volunteer work, I would help people, I'd do the FCA, but at the end of the day, and Rich used to call me out on it, it was to win wrestling matches. But then I had that kind of come to Jesus moment once I found how to eat, move, and be healthy, and then started diving into some of your things. That was really kind of that squeegee moment for me. So I said all that to kind of get to the point is, with all those things in how to eat, move, and be healthy that is kind of in there and it's a template. Do you feel that spiritualism is more for the mental aspect of things, or is it connecting it all together from how to eat, move, and be healthy?
no, it includes all the key principles of Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. So Spirit Gym's based on 10 key principles, which are preceded by zero, which is my symbolic expression of source. And then it has zero has three qualities: the witness, which is non-being, and then it has the implicate order, which is the emptiness of God or the realm of spirit that can't be weighed or measured, but is the guiding intelligence that creates everything in existence. And then it has the positive. So there's zero, zero negative, the empty aspect, zero positive, that which is expressed. And so those on my master key that you can see here, uh, the empty space is what represents unconditional love. The dotted circle around it, the handle of the key, represents non-being. The black wing represents yin, the feminine, the emptiness of God, the womb of creation. The white wing represents yang, the masculine, that which is expressed out of the infinite well of potential. And then we have Om, which is the sound of God singing itself into existence, which is followed by myth, which is the story that tells itself, called life. And then it's 10 principles, from the one to duality, to the Holy Trinity, to four, which is embodiment, to five, which is the challenge in any life process or creative process. Six is the six foundation principles: nutrition, hydration, sleep, breathing, thinking, movement. Seven is the seven chakras and the spirit and the soul, what that really is and how to work with it and realize what you are. Eight is the principle of self-reflection and inner work and rest and meditation. Nine represents a new level of being now that you have practiced and fulfilled your dream or gone through a healing process or overcome an addiction. 9 means you're coming to the end of a cycle. So that's all about how not to fall off the wagon and how to get to the point where your new values and your new dream and your goals are inherently part of your being. So you don't have to think about it anymore. It's just who you are. You don't have to question whether or not you're going to eat organic food. If someone puts something in your face like alcohol that doesn't work for you, you don't feel insecure about saying, no, that doesn't work for me. And 10 is the end of the cycle. And that's where we go into a winter phase and we redream and say, okay, what's my next co-creation with Great Spirit? How am I going to express my love in the world? What does my heart call me to do? And that would be the beginning of your next hero's journey. So the 15 volumes cover that. And in Spirit Gym, that's covered in what's called the Master Key Lessons, which is about 65 hours of online training with beautiful graphics and slides on slides and me film, video of me. And I take you step by step through the process of exploring all these things. And I have a tremendously comprehensive but important section on how to create your own personal myth. So you take responsibility for your own story and realize you're the chief creator of your life. And so you get taken through step by step. What are the key components that need to be in your personal myth so that you're not blindsided and leaving things that are really important out? And then you are guided to write your own myth, illustrate your own myth, share it with kids, with family, with friends. And that gives you a sense of I am, but this time you are conscious that you're authoring your own I am and your own expression of yourself in the world. And you're conscious that you're a co-creator, that you're not a victim of circumstance, but you're awake and saying, I choose what I choose out of conscious willingness to accept responsibility for my choices. And so it makes you a real co-creator with Source. And it gives you the wisdom to realize that your life is your own. And so the whole goal is to create more love in your life, more freedom in your life, and to add more life to life because you're doing things that are genuinely an authentic expression of yourself as opposed to what you think you got to do to just survive or make a living or live on the treadmill and flatland.
Paul, can I ask you what your myth is?
Well, my myth is really the entire of Spirit Gym. In volume 1, the introduction is quite long. I take people through my whole life and what happened to me in my childhood and all the experiences I went through and all my work with various masters like Master Fong Ha and various others, and all my experiences from Tai Chi and Qigong and meditation. And then my many years now, over 1,000 plant medicine ceremonies I've conducted, both to heal people and my own inner research. And, but really, my personal myth, if I was to encapsulate it, is that it's hard to really put into just a short soundbite, but really I would say that my myth is that I'm a mystery that is becoming aware of its own magic and learning to utilize the mystery, not to get any guarantee of an objective conclusion, but to realize that the best thing that you can do when facing a mystery is to embrace it. And ultimately, the verb that drives all mysteries is love. And so my kind of the theme of my myth is learning to live and love more fully so that no matter what anyone else does or whether the world explodes or not, I can leave the world knowing that I did live fully and I did do my best to leave the world in a better state than I found it in. I think there's a really good myth that's quite powerful. It's very short. I'll share it with you. It's a Chinese myth. it's an origin myth, and it's got no name ascribed to it as an author, which is often the case with myths. But it's very aligned with me and who I am. And it's called the myth of the dragon. And it goes like this. In this one, you want to listen carefully because there's a lot more in it than meets the eye. The dragon has a favorite hobby. The dragon loves to breathe universes into existence. And each new universe is created out of two baby dragons, one named Yin and one named Yang. And the dragon says to the babies every time it breathes a new universe into existence, the two of you can rest from managing your universe when you can get along. And there it is. That's about as close to my myth as you can get. The two of you can rest from managing your universe, your life, your relationships when you can get along. When you can balance the forces of the feminine and masculine, the forces of desire and will, the forces of unknowing and knowing, the emptiness and the fullness, you can rest from managing your universe. Or said another way, when you can get your left brain and right brain to stop questioning each other and dancing back and forth, then everything will be revealed to you, which is, you know, paradoxically no thing.
How do we do that?
Well, I think the answer is surprisingly crazy. I know what I've found out. The way you do it is you do what you love to do, and you be honest with yourself, and you be honest with other people, so you don't have a bunch of shadow and baggage chasing you around everywhere. And you pay attention to what is breathing you every day, and what is looking through your eyes, and listening through your ears, and tasting with your senses, and smelling with your nose, and enjoying your sex organs. And you find yourself, when you're doing the things that you love to do, and you're growing yourself, not because you think you have to or because you're insecure, but because you're just curious about what your potential is. You know, for example, I love to paint. You can see a lot of my mandalas on the wall behind me, in front of you. I just go into meditation. I lift rocks, and I you know, train in the gym, and I try to just let my soul guide me so that I can practice not letting my ego get involved. And I find that I go into these states where time just completely vanishes. I've had days where I was painting and 8+ hours went by and I forgot to even eat or drink. And I felt like I was just in a state of bliss the whole time. And I think that when we do the things that we love to do, and we push ourselves like an explorer wants to find new territory, but we're looking inside ourselves, and we're looking into our relationships with curiosity and the kind of the childlike wonder of life, that all of a sudden we start having these experiences where we merge into, I'll give you an example. I was once laying next to a creek in Ashland, Oregon, in a park, and I was kind of just dropping in and out into this hypnagogic state, like half in and half out of sleep. And all of a sudden, I begin to hear the whole creek start talking to me. And it was literally, and I could hear all the conversations, like I could hear the crawdads, and I could hear the bacteria. And it was the craziest thing. It was like I was sitting, you know how when you're in a coffee shop, you can hear everybody else all around you, but you're not able to pay attention to any of them because there's so much going on. It was like I was hearing this conversation, and I could focus in, and all of a sudden my attention, there was some crayfish in there. And I'd say, wow, I'm hearing their conversation. I would see them like talking to each other and their little antlers moving. And then all of a sudden I would hear these whispers, like the bacteria along the whole riverbed and everywhere inside of it was talking. and then the water would be talking to me, and it would be speaking to me inside of myself. And, I've had just crazy experiences where trees will be talking to me, or plants will talk to me, or the spirit of a building or a house. I used to go all over the world because I spent 25 years on the road lecturing everywhere all over the world with Penny. And I'm clairvoyant, and I've got some of these other abilities that Great Spirit gave me. And I would just go to these churches I would find, and I would just put my hands on the wall and empty myself. And I could feel and see images inside of myself, and I could pick up the vibration and sense what was really the energy coming out of the church. Like what was the level of consciousness of those people that went there regularly. And it would be amazing just to feel the variance. Like I could go to 10 different Christian churches, and the level of consciousness that was in the stones was radically different. It was like, some were hell and damnation, but some were very open and lifting, so the answer is really, I think, paradoxically, if you do what you love to do, then your sense of love expands, and your heart starts bringing everything into you. And as you relax your mind, you start realizing that you're not separate from anything, but you're actually a unique expression of everything. You're an expression of the world. You're an expression of the sun. You're an expression of the moon. You are the forest. You are the water. You are the sky. You are the oceans. You're the rivers. You're the streams. You're the bighorn sheep crashing antlers over women. You're the woman giving birth. You're the fire, the volcano. You're the earthquake. You're the tornado. You're the solar eclipse. And you realize that the conscious mind has to be there as a firewall, because if we don't have the ego structure, then we really cannot identify ourselves. We're like a stone in a pyramid that can't identify itself as a stone. It only has the experience of being a pyramid. So there's a necessary function for the ego, because it gives us the ability to experience love. Like if I didn't know who I was, I couldn't have this conversation with you. And if you didn't know who you were, you couldn't have this conversation with me. So strangely enough, the ego is absolutely necessary for the action and the experience of love, because there has to be a lover and a beloved. So without the ego, there's no lover, and therefore there's no perception of the beloved. And paradoxically, you can't have a mind without an ego either, because you have to have a subject. Like right now, you're listening to me talk. So I'm the object of your awareness, and my voice is coming inside you. And as the subject, you're picking me up and having this experience of connecting to me. But if it wasn't for our ego, we would not be able to do that, because we wouldn't know the difference between each other. You'd be like fingers on a hand that don't realize that they have independent action, or they're part of a hand. So if each of these fingers had an ego, they might all start disagreeing with each other, and that could create problems. So that's the other thing. When you start paying attention to the freaking incredibly intense complexity of life, and I've been studying the human body my whole professional career. You're talking about 100 trillion cells, each cell made of 100 trillion atoms. There's 30 billion biochemical reactions a second in the human body. And your soul and your spirit is orchestrating that. I mean, if anyone just spent time to say, what did it take to make me happen? The majesty and the magnificence is so far beyond what our rational mind can really grapple with. I think if a lot of people just studied the their own body and really asked, how is this possible? And what is it that I'm living in here? And realized that this is a work of art so phenomenal that we've gotten used to it. So we don't realize that we've been given this miracle of a gift of a body. And you see that because people don't take care of their bodies. And in fact, a lot of people, are depressed and suicidal and don't want to be here. And I think, just think of the joy of sex itself, just how freaking wild that is. I mean, anybody that's had a simultaneous orgasm with a lover knows that there's a moment where there's no you or they, you become totally one. And it's kind of like a full hit of DMT. You're just gone, but paradoxically more alert and more alive than you've ever been in your whole life. So the answer to how you get there is really a synthesis of all that. Do what you love to do. Be open to the mystery. Don't fall asleep and assume things, and walk around in nature and just connect to things and look at what it takes to keep you alive. I mean, we drink water every day that keeps us alive. It came from outside of us. We breathe air that came from outside of us. We're eating food that came from outside of us. We wouldn't know anything about who we are or have any knowledge if it wasn't for all the people outside of us that we've learned from. And so really, when you look at it, it's like we're made of everything and everybody else. And so how can you feel alone when you're actually carrying everyone inside of you, everything inside of you, really?
That was pretty mind-blowing, Paul. And you said the ego is necessary. And I feel you there, and you did a really good job of breaking that down. But at the beginning, you said, you're able to put your hands on walls of churches or stones and feel that energy, or you can sit at a lake in Oregon and watch the animals taking all the details of everything. And sometimes I feel my ego is what gets involved with, those intuitive gifts that we get. Sometimes I feel like I don't know if it's myself, or you're feeling it come in and you pick up on something, but you're crazy, you're making that up. How do we kind of sift through that stuff and continue to use who we are as an individual, but also allow the mystery to come in and work with that and listen to the signs that you're getting on a daily basis?
Well, that's a very, very good question. Unfortunately for you, I'll give you a good answer. Well, you see, when we use the word ego, if we want to answer a question like yours, we have to now make a distinction, because the ego is really a nexus of programming that develops its own sense of intelligence. So a child's ego begins when they start using one of two words or both, which is I and no, which is around 2 years of age. Up until that time, the child has no ego. It's a state of total fusion. It doesn't know the difference between itself and its mother, itself and the dog. The kid will shit and piss everywhere because it thinks it's all it. And so that's the state, really. That's an enlightened state, but it's an unconscious enlightened state. So we have to go through enculturation in order for the soul to know how to engage in the time, in the place, and in the culture that it's come to have an experience and to grow. And so the enculturation process is when we get all the taboos and we learn God wants this out of you, God wants that out of you, don't do this, don't touch your genitals. And so we get pit right against our instincts. And so that's how the shadow begins to develop. So whatever goes against our natural instincts and against the impulse of our soul, if acting that out stops us from getting loved, feeling accepted, feeling wanted, needed, and valued, we have to repress it. So we have to say, okay, I'm not allowed to masturbate. Christ, it feels fucking good. Why am I not allowed to do this? And so all of a sudden you're being told God will burn you in hell for that and all this other shit. So now you start actually finding that you're pitted against your authentic self. And so you have to start repressing a lot of this stuff, because then you have to start keeping secrets from God, you know, so people play out, masturbate in the closet. I'm just using this as something everybody would understand. You know, you're not supposed to listen to rock music if you're in some churches, so, but you love it. So you got to figure out, you know, how to do that with headphones on when nobody can hear you. So now you got another thing you got to stuff in the box of repression and hide from God. And so what happens is, as the ego is getting more and more complex, it reaches a point where it actually is formed enough that there's a full sense of differentiation. It knows self versus not self. It knows should versus shouldn't. It knows its own truth or perceived truth versus not truth, or somebody else's idea of the truth. So the ego actually creates this perception of separation that allows that individual the opportunity to think that they're a unique individual, which is important. But at the same time, as that complexity is growing, so is the library of all the repressions, and that's the shadow material. So you see, Steiner describes that there's stages of soul development. The first stage is the mineral soul. Steiner says anything with an inside and an outside has a soul, and an atom has an inside and an outside. So your teeth and your bones are the mineral soul. And then there's the biological soul, which is also called the sentient soul, and that's your animal body. Then there's the intellectual soul, which is what forms into the conscious ego. But Steiner says that the next stage of development, which is called the awareness soul, doesn't begin until you start asking one key question. Is it really true? Is it really true that God loves you but will burn you in hell? Is it really true that if you don't accept Jesus as your savior, you're going to burn in hell? Is it really true that if you don't follow the rules, whether they be paying your taxes or being monogamous in a monogamous culture, even if it's not natural for you? So what happens is you start realizing that these are all constructs that are made up by people. And you also come to a point where you realize you've been a good Christian, you've been a good this, a big good that, but you're empty inside. Nothing's fulfilling to you anymore. It's just like, what do? I just work for fucking money and pay bills all the time. And most of my friends have to medicate themselves with alcohol and pot and everything else. Oh, we lost somebody. We lost
You're
your
good.
bud.
Keep
brother.
going.
And so what happens is we start asking, is it really true? And to the degree there's an honest pursuit of that, then we start developing this awareness soul, and we become more and more aware of the fact that we're in a matrix that's largely built out of illusions created by other people. So what your brother was asking me is about, well, you know, I have all these thoughts that come in, and all these judgments that come in, and how do I wrestle with all that stuff? And, you know, if you take, you know, a couple of doses of real good ayahuasca, or you take a shamanic dose of mushrooms, all that shit comes racing up to the surface, because those medicines break down the default mode network, which is the parts of the brain that actually create the ego construct and create the illusion of separation. And so that's why plant medicines can be so accelerating to spiritual growth, because, and why you need to be very careful, because you actually get all that repressed material. It can't be held down. It's the ego structure that keeps it at bay. So once those things start coming up, whether they be with or without plant medicines, you actually are getting to have a look at the matrix of your own mind, but you're not seeing your mind. You're actually seeing the mind that was programmed into you before you had any discernment, because you didn't have an ego to say, Mom, come on, really? You think you believe in that God? Mom, are you sure you want to take that shot they're trying to give you? There's nothing on the insert to tell you what it is, right? So what happens is you start actually looking at and seeing the illusory matrix and realize this is not only is it a racket, it's a hugely profiteering racket. It's really a piracy racket. And so to take that a little bit deeper now, it looks like it's all fucked up. You know, when you get to a certain level of conscious awakening, you're like, what the fuck's going on around here? Like, half these people are just criminals. The government's just a sham. The church is full of pedophiles. You know, you start stacking all this up and you're like, what the fuck's going on? I mean, this is like ridiculous. And then you see how people are medicating the shit out of themselves because their soul is so empty from trying to survive everybody else's rules. But if you keep going and you keep spending time in yourself and you meditate to calm your mind down so you can get past the traffic of the programmed mind and the buzz of it all, and because the more threatened you feel, the more insecure you feel about being who you are, the more you have a constant search function, because you're always looking around consciously or unconsciously to like, okay, am I going to get in trouble for saying this right now? You know, what if I want to fucking take my clothes off and go jump in the swimming pool? How many minutes will it take before someone calls the cops and I'm in jail because I just want to fucking be naked? You know, my wife has come home a few times and found me in the front yard naked in the middle of a ceremony where people are driving right past my front yard to come home. She's like, what are you doing? You're in the front yard. You're fucking naked. I'm like, it's cool. Maybe they'll enjoy the sights, for God's sakes. I'm not here to live. But you see, what happens is you get to this magical experience where you actually can see the matrix of your own mind. And you can see the matrix of other people's minds, and you can see the matrix of the social mind. You can see the matrix of belief systems like religions. You can see the matrix of isms like Nazism, materialism, veganism. You can see all of these mental matrices and how they're actually designed to catch people like a fishnet. But eventually, with someone like me guiding people, and that's what Spirit Gym's all about, you realize that if you didn't have this matrix of mind, then you would not have the necessary resistance to have to grow yourself emotionally, to grow yourself mentally, and to grow yourself spiritually. You would just go into flatland. And that's the function, unfortunately, that's the function of evil, is to keep the pot stirring so you can never get too comfortable. Because if all you're doing is sit around and drinking beer and eating donuts and smoking pot all day and watching movies, you've got no reason to actually ask, who am I? And explore yourself. But when all of a sudden someone threatens to stick you with a needle or make you go to war when you don't believe in it, or force you to pay ridiculous levels of taxes and all the list of shit that goes on, eventually you get enough. Some of us say, I'm not fucking putting up with this. I got to figure out what the hell's going on here. And so you start looking into it. So what you end up finding out is that we actually go through this enculturation process because the soul comes from such an expanded, vast state of being in a state of oneness in the eternal now. And it comes into this experience of time. There's a metaphysical saying, time, the function of time is so that everything doesn't happen all at once, because you can't have a conscious experience if you're in a state of eternity, because you're just fused into oneness. So time actually is where God itself has an experience of itself on every possible level. And so you begin to see that this whole thing's set up to push us into a matrix where we actually develop a sense of self-identity out of the process of this. But then we actually have a context for perception. Like, I can perceive that you're human because I have a context for what a human being is. I can perceive concepts of God because through life experience and study, I've looked into it. So now when someone uses the word God, I got a whole library in my head of what that could possibly mean. And so once we have a context for perception and we start having mystical experiences, we can say, oh, wow, I just had a conversation with an angel. And no other, if we had no concept of an angel, we wouldn't even know what we were looking at. So you see that we go through this enculturation process to build a mind, but then we get to the point where the sentient soul or the awareness soul kicks in, and we start asking, is it really true? Is it really true? And we start penetrating deeper into the mystery. And as we penetrate deeper into the mystery, because we get the answers, well, no, it's actually not true. God won't burn you in hell. That would be a stupid God, because it would be burning itself in hell. So we throw that one out the window, and we find out, well, yeah, you don't have to be in a monogamous relationship. You just got to find a woman that agrees to the terms that work for you, and that's up to you, and it's between you and God. And so we start going through all this list of, is it really truths? And our blinders start coming off, and we start seeing right through the matrix. And so the paradox is Spirit Gym is where we have to go be enculturated into a mind to develop a contextual framework to begin to perceive what's in reality, which is why growing your knowledge base, growing your experience base, studying, learning from people that are deep enough to really expand you is so important, because when you have an enlightenment experience, if you don't have an adequate level of mind, you cannot import it into meaning. It's just like you've been hit over the head. Like I tell people, one of the worst things you can do in a plant medicine ceremony is to take a dose that's so high that you can't remember what happened, because it's like being shit-faced drunk and someone else telling you, hey, you got thrown in jail last night and you should have seen the shit you were doing, and you have no idea what it was. Or if you take a dose so high, it puts you into fear and you have to defend yourself against the medicine. Now you're just in a fear. So now you're not open at all because you're in a fear state. So all your senses closed down and you're just trying to survive. So the secret of a real good shaman or guide is to put you in the right state so that you're more blown open than you've ever been, but you're still fully awake. But you're not so underdone that you're going, oh, well, this is like, cool, but no big deal. And that way you can stay fully awake, and you can talk to someone like me and say, wow, this is what I'm experiencing right now. What does this mean? Or, so you can stay in the game. And I say, well, hey, look at this. Or, that angel you just saw, ask them the question about why you had such a painful childhood. Ask them what an angel is. Take advantage of these opportunities. So in a nutshell, I'll wrap this all up and say, first thing we got to do is build an ego so we can interface with the culture and develop a sense of self. Then we have to build enough complexity in the ego to have enough contextual framework to begin to understand what it is that we're looking at as we progressively start answering the question, is it really true? And then the blinders start coming off, and that's what spirituality is a connection to a progressively larger whole. So once the dogmatic Christian realizes that all Christians are lovers of Jesus, so I should love them all, now their sphere of connection is bigger. Then when they go, wow, I don't know why, but these Buddhist people, they're a lot more peaceful than most of the Christians I know. And someone hands you a book on the precepts of Buddhism, and you say, wow, that is a lot simpler. Wow, shit, there's just these 8 precepts and a few guidelines. And you say, well, I'm going to secretly do this. And next thing you know, you're much more at peace inside. And then you think, oh, geez, I wonder what it is that Lao Tzu guy has to say. You read the Tao Te Ching, and man, you just go, holy fucking hell. In 81 verses of poetry, this guy took me deeper than 1,000 pages of the Bible. And now your sphere of connection gets even bigger. So you go from I-centric, I, me, mine, to we-centric, my people, to world-centric, and you go, wow, I'm part of the whole fucking world. This is unbelievable. And then eventually you keep asking, is it really true? And then you realize, wow, I am a citizen of the fucking cosmos, and no one can take that away from me. I don't give a shit if you fucking kill me, because the worst thing that's going to happen is I'll be home. So you see what I'm saying to you, Jimmy, is that the exact part of yourself that keeps coming up and asking you all these questions is the part you say, hello, darling. Yes, so you're insecure about shagging two girls. Well, let me ask you a question. Did you enjoy it? What was it? Did you manipulate them into this? Or was it consensual? No, it was consensual. Well, why don't you focus on the experience that you had instead of telling yourself what you should or shouldn't have done? Because if you haven't hurt anybody and it was consensual, then that's called being alive, right? That's so that you see, you have to now take the state of consciousness that you're aware that you have that is triggering the programmed ego to come be what Freud calls the superego. It's the judging mommy and daddy in the head. You shouldn't do that, and then you have to say, hey, wait a minute. You don't have to tell me I'm insecure anymore. You don't have to tell me I'm not good enough. But thank you for reminding me that I have that program in there. And now I'm going to remind myself I'm absolutely fucking great just the way I am. And I love who I am. And when it pops up again, you say, oh, hello. So I teach people name it, blame it, and tame it. Hello, Mr. Doubting Mind. Hello, Mr. Insecure. Thank you for reminding me that I used to be insecure, but I'm not insecure anymore. In fact, I'm in love with myself because I get to paint and I get to dance, I get to sing, and I get to have a great radio show. And you don't have to keep telling me that, but if you think it's necessary, it's okay. And then what you find is every time that happens and you just meet it and you let the higher part of yourself know that it's okay, you start developing a new neural network that supports the higher truth of yourself. And that thing starts to wither away like atrophy. And then it's just stops showing up. And then you're just completely at peace with being yourself. And if other people don't like it, that's just their little story and that they're just caught in their head and they're still working in spirit gym to figure out who they are. And you just smile at them and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, I tell people, you don't have to like me. You don't have to love me. You can love me or you can hate me, but either way, I got you. Because if you love me, you're going to listen. And if you hate me, you're going to carry me around with you everywhere you go. And the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to say, oh, Paul Chek says this and this and this. And someone's going to say, well, he's telling you the truth, right? And they're going to go, what? Well, yeah, actually, a Swiss ball is really a good thing to use. And yeah, it's a really good idea to eat real food. And yeah, you do have a soul. And, so when you just trust that you're living the truth because you experience it inside and you realize that program network is what it took to give you a nexus of perception, then you just start working with it and you just pare the tree down, stick to your truth, energize that. And the next thing you know, you've got a open mind that can reach the edges of the cosmos, that can entertain any concept or idea without having to defend against it. And you can always say what I say to people. They come up and say, oh, you got to be saved by Jesus or whatever. And I say, that's really nice. How's that working for you? Are you free? And what about all the people in the world that have never heard of Jesus, but they've lived beautiful lives and loving lives? Are they going to burn in hell too? Because if they are, what does that say about your God? So I just answer them with questions that if they actually answer the question honestly, starts paring the tree for them. Instead of saying you're an idiot, you're fucking wrong or whatever, I just ask them a better question. So that's a long-winded way, Jimmy, of saying that's the function of what you're going through and we're all going through is what Spirit Gym is. Spirit Gym is where you come to work with resistance because most people don't understand. Consciousness, by definition, is a psychic substance, means it's real, produced not blindly, but in living awareness of opposites. If you don't have opposites, you cannot make meaning of anything. What would mother mean without father? You wouldn't know what the hell a mother was. What would up mean without down? Inside without outside, north without south. So duality is actually essential for God to become conscious of itself. And we are all Ram Das, which means Ram means God, Das means worker. Every one of us, every living creature, every microorganism is God expressing its infinite creativity in every possible way. And if you were a remote viewer like me and had had the experiences that I've had, you'd realize everything that can possibly happen, infinite potential, is happening at this very moment. We think we live in this one little universe. There's more damn universes than we'll ever be able to count. There's endless dimensions. People don't know how to even imagine a God that's got infinite power, infinite intelligence, infinite processing speed, infinite energy, infinite information. How do you wrap your head around that except to make up some fucking story that's so limiting that it just mirrors your lack of depth and understanding back at you to make you feel safe? But the reality of it is, when I'm using the word God, I'm talking about that for which there is no other. Lao Tzu says, speaking of the Tao is deeper than deep, blacker than black. It is older than God. What is he saying? He's saying it's so deep you'll never find the bottom of it. It's so black that you will never see it. And it's older than God because God's just an idea human beings made up to try to put the infinite into a little box so they feel comfortable about it and have some sort of a context for it. But your context can never be anything outside of your frame of reference. So spirit gym is where you say, okay, this is what I've got. This is where I'm having a hard time. This is where my soul feels stifled. This is where my pains are at. And I say, good. Now you know what's on the bar. Let's work with it. First of all, what is your dream? What do you love more than what you're creating right now? If you have a big enough dream, you don't need a crisis. So what do you love more than your crisis that you're actually willing to do the work to really heal, grow, and free yourself for? Because that's a worthy dream or goal or objective. Two, where you got to balance with those 6 foundation principles, because your mind's never going to be any healthier than your body. A mind is an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information. So in absence of a body, your mind is everywhere. I mean, if I waved a magic wand right now and made you disappear and your body was atomized, well, you'd be everywhere in the entire universe at once. You'd be a non-local reality. And so you'd have a really hard time saying I am, other than the fact that you would just be one with all of it. So because a mind's an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information, if our bodies are not healthy, then to the degree that our body is not healthy, vital, and well-regulated, it mirrors itself in our mind. And to the degree that our mind is out of balance and we're dogmatic and we're afraid and we're rigid, then that psychic energy goes into our body. And as far as our cells are concerned, our mind is God. It's easy to prove. If you're happy, every single cell in your body believes you're happy, and your whole face and posture and gesture mirrors that to everybody else. But if you're not, then your whole body and every cell in your body mirrors that back to you. And we know from multiple personality disorder cases that you can have multiple personalities, that one comes on and the eye colors will change, and that language can change, and accent can change, and posture can change. And all of a sudden, a person can manifest a disease like a stomach ulcer or a problem like a hemorrhoid. But 2 minutes later, when another altered personality steps in, all of that changes, including eye color, and all these things that most people can't even wrap their head around. So you actually see that the altered personality represents a fragmented mind that's split off inside of somebody, but it has so much power, it can change things that science didn't even know it was possible to change until the last 20 years or so of advanced research. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying, your mind and body mirror each other. So if you want to be a healthy person, you better take care of your body and you better take care of your mind. And the process of that is spirit gym, because there is a lot of resistance If you're healthy, you got to work at it. If you're not healthy, you got to work at it. If you're lost and confused, that comes with a cost. If you believe anything people tell you, from churches to schoolrooms, you can get lost and confused. And, you know, I could give you 1,000 examples of that. But in a nutshell, do you see what I'm pointing out to you, both of you? But Jimmy, that was the response to your question. That you're in spirit gym and you're going, the fact that you're having that experience means you are now in a place where you can decide how to manage the resistance of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But the only way you can do that is you got to get clear on what your GPS coordinates is. Because if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Right? So a schizophrenic is somebody that really has no management system for all those voices in their head. A multiple personality disorder is someone usually that's been very traumatized and doesn't know how to piece themselves back together again. That's why I do soul recovery with people like that. But the fact that you can actually be aware of that means there's a part of you that's above it, doesn't it? And that's the part of you that is eternal. That's the I. That's the God in you. Only God can give a soul. God is the soul of souls. The soul is consciousness within you. The spirit is the flow of energy and information. So it's your spirit that makes your heart beat, makes you breathe, and inspires you to become. And it's the soul that has the experience of it. And the soul includes memory. And because you are made of the universe, you're in the universe, and you cannot be extracted from it. Every single experience you have, from the thoughts you think to the love you make to the pains you go through, is a real-time feedback loop with the experience. That's the universe's experience itself in, as, and through every living creature. And that's scientifically validated. I mean, I could stack up the science. My spirit gym has loads of this stuff. Like, okay, it's time to bring you guys up to speed on what we've learned from quantum physics and psychoneuroimmunology and biopsychosocial medicine. And, you know, if people knew what we actually know now scientifically, they would realize that the average person out there is like 10,000 years behind in their thinking. And that today is not a good day to be behind the power curve, because the sorcerers are getting so good at manipulating people's minds and controlling people that, you know, you are pretty in it, you know, you're kind of like a 13-year-old girl walking through the Bronx in New York City at midnight, where there's a bunch of muggers and rapists, and she's got no gun, no knife, and no background in martial arts. So she's just like a sitting duck, you know. So, you know, and that's part of the game too. You know, you know, the pressure's on, and we go through these cycles. If you read The Law of One by Ra, they talk about negative entities, and their job is to keep things stressful, so the soul doesn't just get passive, and so that it ultimately grows. Because the greatest mystery and the greatest gift to God is any one of us coming fully self-aware that we are an expression of the divine, and the divine lives in us. And so you can say that the world is like a garden for souls, and it, you know, just like it takes the pressure of the selective pressures of nature to make a tree grow and produce fruit, it takes the selective pressures of nature and society and culture to make us grow until we bear fruit. And the fruit is when we come into a conscious realization of our oneness with Source. Then at that very moment, Source comes into a realization that it is of what it is, and that of its own reality. Because the paradox is that if God is unconditional love, by definition, there's no condition there. My experiences of merging into God and completely, literally dying and not even knowing if I ever come back is that there's absolutely nothing there at all. There's just pure awareness. There's no mind. There's nothing. It's the trippiest, craziest thing. And by definition, unconditional love is unconditional. So when we, as human beings, have the conscious and legitimate realization of our oneness with Source, however it comes, by childbirth, by trauma, by plant medicines, by shamanic ritual, by religious rituals, by meditation, by torture, by dream. That's the moment that God really says I am. And that is the ultimate freaking fruiting for us and for God. And you know, the other really strong reality is it doesn't matter how enlightened I am or Richard is or Jimmy is. That's our own unique experience. If it was as easy for me, if I could just pass my own experiences into everybody else's head, it would probably be quite a radical upgrade, but they wouldn't have actually earned them. So it wouldn't really have any sticking power. It would be like a fleeting fantasy or something. So we actually have to do the work in Spirit Gem to grow our own authentic self-awareness. The point I'm saying is it doesn't matter how amazing my God is or how beautiful my God is. It's always a personal experience. And I can share things like this with people, but they're really just fingers pointing to the moon. You know, as the old saying goes, don't look at the finger, look at the moon. But people fall in love with the finger by reading books, and they believe that shit's true. But you got to look at the moon. You got to go have an experience. This is exactly why Rumi says you cannot get to God until you become a heretic. And what is a heretic? Somebody that goes against the dogma of the day. You cannot understand what God is by reading books, because everything written in books is somebody else's beliefs, it's someone else's ideas, someone else's experience. So the paradox is each of us is a unique expression of the divine for which there will never, ever be another one like that. There will never be another Jimmy, another Richard, another Paul Chek, ever, period. So we've got this one novel opportunity to express what it is that we came here to do in the world. And the jackpot happens, come hell or high water, by torture or by love, when you realize the truth of yourself. And at that very moment, God realizes the truth of itself in you, as you, and through you. That doesn't mean other people haven't realized it. That doesn't mean there's not enlightened people and saints and sages throughout history. But you see, the point I'm making is because you are a novel expression of God, only you can have that experience. And since you cannot prove to anybody else that God exists beyond what they experience, it's your own experience. And so we are each actually responsible for our journey in Spirit Gem and how we handle it. And it's, you know, Osho says it takes 6 billion people to produce one truly enlightened person. So if you think of it like a garden, the garden's growing and growing and growing, and God's harvesting all these plants, we'll call them humans and whatever else, and waiting for one of them to figure it out. And then that's the big celebration. Hallelujah. And having, you know, seen many people have this truly awakening experience, it's pretty fucking wild when someone has a union experience with God and gets it, and it changes them for the rest of their life. There's no question. Anyhow, that's my long-winded answer to your question, Jimmy. How's that?
That's good. I think Rich has something for you. Thank you for that.
Well,
I'm just going to quickly ask Penny to bring me a smoke, if you guys don't mind. It'll take 2 seconds.
yeah, I want to get into that too.
Oh, here she
Paul-
comes. She heard me.
Paul, for the
That's
people that
God
are
over there.
listening that are as excited as Jimmy and I were at this conversation, you mentioned the multiple volumes of Spirit Gym.
Yeah.
Is this also an online community, and there's
Yes.
an online course component that goes along with it as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Spirit Gym, excuse me. Get a shot of water. Spirit Gym is a membership, a community. The first meeting launches on July 3rd, which is coming up, I think, Wednesday. And there's now over 120 people in the community. And there's different levels of membership. The lowest level is the podcast membership, because as of tomorrow, my podcast name changes to Spirit Gym with Paul Chek. And my episode coming out is badass. You guys will love it. It's called 10 Life-Changing Books, and wait till you hear what I reveal in this podcast. And then there's the Founders Club, which is right now, if you join now and you pay for the full year up front, your prices are fixed forever. And if you pay up front for the year, you have access to all the lessons, which are many. I'm still building them out, but I've put up, I think I've got 48 lessons, and there's going to be close to 70 just to cover the master key, which is really just the basics, which takes you through, shadow work, healing yourself, getting clear on what a mind is and how to use it, identifying what your personal cosmology is, identifying what your personal myth and mythology is, understanding all these different viewpoints on God, learning how to go through developing your own healing program or any program, learning what is a true mentor, guide, or hierophant. How do you select one, and what are you looking for so you don't get tricked? Why do we need one? I've got lessons on nutrition, hydration, sleep, breathing, thinking, and movement, so that anyone can understand how to balance their body. And I've got a whole comprehensive lesson on the spirit and soul that I everything in the master key, but some of these things are deep enough that I have to have like 3, 4, some sections have 9 lessons on one topic, so that I can take you step by step and not just blow your brain completely out of your mind. And all of them have meditations and practical work and journaling work. So each step of the way, you're actually doing this work and looking inside yourself with various types of meditations. I teach you, for example, how to meet the spirits of different beings like the sun. I show you how I actually connect to the sun and met the sun and realized these are spiritual beings. They're not just chunks of stone and gas out there. I already had, this is funny, one of the guys that's on the Freedom Builders team, who's doing all my marketing and housing the program, because he's editing all the lessons. He's going through and he says, he says, I freaking thought that was amazing when you were teaching how to connect to the moon and the sun. And he says, I've been having some challenges in my life. And he said, I just finished studying that lesson. He said, it was like late at night. And he said the moon was almost full. He said, so screw it, I'm going to go out and try this. And I said, and what happened? He said, Paul, I had such a profound experience. I am speechless. And he said, to be honest with you, I want to quit my job and do nothing but these spirit gym lessons now. So I'm like, congratulations. You just realize there's a lot more going on here than just working for a living. And so the way it's conducted is, as the books come out, there's 15 volumes. So the first volume's gonna come out any day now. With each successive book, there will be a relaunch and more talking about what's in that book. But I took the entire 15 volume series and synthesized this down into these key lessons of what's the most important parts that you need to study. If you want to get into the depth and all the research and all the references, then you got to read the books. But when I say I'm the guy that put this together, this is what you need to know, this is what you need to practice, I've got probably 60 plus hours of training that you get for the year's membership. If you buy the Founders program, even after the year, you still get to have access to the lessons for life. Even if you don't go, as long as you paid for your year, it's a non-refundable. If you pay for the year and you're in as a founding member, then you have access to the lessons for life, whether you join or not. One second. Then, cheers.
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 Some love for you. Each week I do a lesson, and I'm typically going to follow the lessons so that you actually hear it right from me personally, even though I'm on the video, like it's a video lesson. but I'm going to take people through, and I do an hour every week, and I focus on key concepts from each lesson so that anyone in the audience can ask me questions. Then I open the airways to all the members, and anyone can ask me any question about the lessons, about challenges they're having in their life. Open mic, man. Hit me with your best shot, and I'll use my skill as a therapist and a life coach and a mystic to guide you. And I will have mentors so that if someone's taking up more time than I can really work with, I will send you to a waiting room where one of my highly skilled mentors will work with you on the side until they've got you to a place where you can jump back in. And that'll go 60 to 90 minutes. So there's an hour lesson and 60 to 90 minutes of live coaching with me, guiding you and answering questions and helping you from health problems to relationship problems to questions about spiritual development, God, whatever it is you want to throw at me. And once we kind of get a sense of where the membership is largely based, then if there's a lot of them from Australia, then we'll put a group together and I will do a session for them each week. But initially we'll rotate the call time so that people around the world are more favored. So sometimes it'll be better for the Australians, sometimes better for the Europeans, sometimes better for North America. All of it's recorded, so you have access to all the recordings. And the goal is that everybody gets to learn by watching everybody else go through coaching and guidance with me, because almost always people have parallel problems. There'll be 40 people in there on the edge of a divorce. And so when I address that, they'll all get touched. There'll be a ton of people with health problems. There'll be, so everyone gets to actually watch how I apply the principles of Spirit Gym real time so that they can leave each day and say, oh, now I know what the earth element means in alchemy. And now I can see it. Now I know what fire means in alchemy. Now I know how to use the basics of nonviolent communication in my relationships. Now I know the importance of having clearly established values and how to deal with relationship conflicts. So it's really like a mentorship program in what I found to be the 10 essential principles that if you don't understand, life will beat the shit out of you. And even if when it keeps beating the shit out of you, you'll know how to turn it into something useful so that you become more capable of guiding others and saving them from unnecessary booby traps, like you said you did for your brother, right? You said, hey, there's some potholes you want to avoid, but there are some you're going to have to step into yourself. But, Big Brother will be there to support you when you come crawling out of that pothole. And so really, I'm just trying to help people out of the potholes they're stuck in and show them where the potholes that most people get stuck in are. So then there's a store where all the beautiful art from the book will be on sale. There'll be all sorts of stuff that I think people need to know about, whether it be biogeometry technologies for minimizing electromagnetic pollution, harmonizing your body. Then the lowest level is the podcast membership, which is $7.99 a month. So you get the extended play podcast, because as of this episode, only the first half of the podcast will be free. The long play will be membership based, and I'll start switching a lot of the podcasts more to Spirit Gym themes to sort of indoctrinate people a little bit, give them a taste of it so they get a little bite. I think that's the main thing, but really it's designed. I felt I had to create a community of people that learn how to think holistically, learn how to solve problems intelligently, learn how to ask bigger questions, learn how to heal their programming, learn how to love themselves better, learn how to even love the people that are challenging to love. And I think if we don't do this from the ground up, Jesus is not coming back. I hate to say it, but Jesus was smart enough not to get stapled to the tree twice in a row by the same people he came to save the first time. Of course, I'm speaking mythologically. We are the second coming of Christ, and Christ is consciousness. The word Christ means one who is united with the all. That's the definition of Christ. Christ consciousness is the consciousness of being awake. It's the same as Buddha consciousness. There's many, this is in all different cultures. They just use different names to describe it. In fact, I've got a book in my library called The Parallel Sayings of Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, and Lao Tzu. And you can see they're all saying the exact same things with slightly different words. I mean, there's hundreds of pages of these statements about key aspects of life. The kingdom of heaven is before you, but men do not see it. Split the wood and I will be there. You know, lift the stone and I will be there. I mean, they're all saying the same thing, but people get railroaded by these unenlightened so-called gurus and experts to think that, you know, it's got to be this way, or, you know, blah, blah, blah. So I just reached the point in my life where I said, look, I'll be 63 in August. I've been doing this for just under 41 years now. I've seen every damn thing under the sun. So the same reason I wrote How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, I'm like, okay, these people are lost and they don't realize the most important things they got to know, or they're going to constantly be in pain and unhealthy. Now I got to teach them how to use their mind and how to manage their emotions and how to think and how to contribute to teaching people to get outside of all these belief systems and really have a loving relationship with themselves, because we're 50% of every relationship we have, right? If I'm having a relationship with Richard and he's 10% not there because he's distracted by, maybe he's worried about whether or not his girlfriend's going to leave him or if he can pay his bills, there's 10% of Richard that's not there, and there's 10% I cannot access. That's a 20% deficit. That's a huge, that'll cause a lot of problems in relationships. The way I describe that is, look, I'm in San Diego. It's 110 miles to LA. If your GPS is 20% off, you won't even end up in Los Angeles. You will miss it entirely. So if we're not present in our relationships because we don't know how to take care of ourselves, we create deficit that leads to all sorts of unnecessary problems. And that is relationships with ourselves. That's our relationship with institutions. That's our relationship with government. I feel that if we don't get together and grow, as Ken Wilber says, wake up, clean up, grow up, and show up, well, I don't need to tell you guys, the electronic jail is being built around you every second of the day, and you are going to be nothing but a factory farmed animal for somebody else's research and play toy, and they will exterminate you at any time they want to, any way they want to, and all you got to do is look at the statistics of how many people have died in the last 4 years, and it's more than any war we've ever had on this planet, hands down. And we funded that. Every one of us paid for that. Okay, now if that doesn't mean you're absolutely fucking asleep, nothing does. So I just said, hey, look, I've got kids. I've got a 43-year-old and a grandson. That's my first son. And I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old girl that's about to turn 5 any day now. And I'm looking at the future going, I don't want my kids to grow up one day and say, why the fuck did my daddy not do something about this? Like, I look at the world right now. I look at the state of children. Kids are the sickest they've ever been in the history of humanity. There was recently research published that analyzed the blood of newborn babies, showing the average newborn has 126 toxic chemicals in his body at dangerously high levels. And they're right out of the birth canal. There's kids being born with arteriosclerosis. Kids are being born all over the world with the chronic degenerative diseases that only used to show up in 70 and 80-year-old people. We've got such high levels of diabetes right now that the cost for diabetes management in the United States is $3 trillion a year. That's more than the US national defense budget, which is the biggest in the world, right? So like, we need to learn to eat, move, and be healthy. We need to respect, love, and care for the soil. We need to take care of nature. She is our home. And we've got to stop funding all this shit. We've got to make organic farmers and biodynamic farmers the new heroes of our culture, not all these movie stars that are doing stupid shit on television, telling you a bunch of crap, programming the minds of children to be lost and confused so they don't even know what gender is anymore, for God's sakes. So I just said, look, if it's the last fucking thing I do before I leave this planet, I'm going to round up as many people as I can, and I'm not going to make anybody else wrong. I'm just going to say, if you really want to understand why you're here, why we're all here, and what we can do together while we're here, there's nothing more beautiful than we can do is to support each other into understanding fundamental principles about what makes life, what makes health, what is love, how does it work, what is a relationship, why are they important? I tell people all the time, all you got to do is have an intimate relationship with someone, and that's the church that really does the job. You will go through enough growth in any honest, loving, intimate relationship. If you're married, you will meet every part of yourself. You'll meet every one of your loves and your temptations and your challenges. You'll come face to face with everything you need to come through to get enlightened right there. You don't need to go put money in somebody else's hat and go into somebody else's building and get caught in a cult or an ism to find yourself or God, because it hasn't worked so far. So in a nutshell, I just said, look, I'm going to do my best. So I put my heart and soul into sharing everything I know from honest hard work and life experience and coaching thousands of people. I mean, you guys know enough about me to know I've worked with the greatest athletes in the world. I've worked with Olympic committees. I've worked with many professional sports teams. I've worked with many billionaires. I mean, I've been around, and I've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that anyone that follows these teachings has a level of freedom, both in health and in mind and emotion, that isn't commonly available. And I don't know of any other system in the world that's truly put together a holistic approach to spiritual development that integrates the issues of health, body, emotions, and mind and spiritual development in one place that's accessible to anybody. And I'm bringing in mentors that are very intelligent, very evolved people. So occasionally, all of a sudden, you will have a guest mentor come in. Might be a Paul Levy or any of the geniuses that I know out there from working with them are really tapped in, and they will give a presentation instead of me. And so I'm going to expose people to as many geniuses as I can, so that they really get a flowering education and a community where they can talk to each other about what's really important to them and not have a bunch of flaming and stupid shit, you know? So this is my attempt to say, let's wake up, clean up, grow up, and show up together, because if you rub your crystal ball and say, what happens if it keeps going on for the next 4 years like the last 4 years? I don't think you need to have too many brain cells holding hands to say, it doesn't look good for our kids. It doesn't look good for nature. It doesn't look good for the planet. It only looks good for a handful of people. And I wonder where the fuck they're going to live when they collapse this planet. I mean, the sex organs of this planet are on the edge of destruction. Entomologists published a paper probably 5 or 6 years ago now, and the title was Armageddon May Be Near, because they noticed with worldwide studies that bug traffic was reduced 75% in the last 50 years. That's the sex organs of this planet. Steiner said, life as we know it depends on two things, bees and trees. And when either of them reaches a critically low level, life will cease to exist as we know it. We now have the most massive extinction of bees we ever had, tracked right to pesticides and electromagnetic pollution. And none of these fucking corporations could give a shit. We're cutting millions of acres of trees down in the rainforest and all over the world every day, which is along with the plankton in the ocean, is the chief providers of oxygen. The oxygen levels have been dropping progressively for the last 50 years. I mean, this is the problem. Most people live such a narrow life, and to spend most of their time watching shit on television and social media, they don't realize, like, the Great Barrier Reef is dying, the oceans are dying. We've almost fished out the oceans. The fish has got high levels of heavy metals in it. Our farmlands are destroyed. I mean, I could fucking go on and on and on. And I'm a guy that studies all this stuff, and I'm like, why in the fucking hell are people not doing something about this? And, you know, thank God for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because at least there's somebody that's smart enough to know the truth and try to do something about it. And thank God for the people that are awake, whether they be the Eckhart Tolles of the world or any of the people that are conscious, Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden. I mean, these are people that are making an honest effort to do their best to love and support everybody. And I personally think that I've got to do my part. And you guys are doing your part, or you wouldn't be having me on here right now. You wouldn't be having a show like this. Like, that's doing something about it. That's why I do my podcast. For fucking nothing, I can educate you on a lot of goddamn things and bring you smart goddamn people to talk to and listen and go, holy shit, I had no idea. I mean, if you really want to know what's going on, just listen to my podcast with James Tunney. If that doesn't just sit you right straight up in your chair, you're already dead. So, but you see, this is part of it. Do you understand? All of this is part of Spirit Gym. Look, how long in history can you go back and say, oh, finally, there's a place where there's no wars and everybody's happy? There isn't one. If you read scripture, you will find throughout scripture the gods are at war with each other all over. Why? As Hermes said, and as alchemy says, as above, so below. You can't have consciousness without these two forces going at each other. And the secret is to find, if you look at the Tai Chi symbol, you got yin and yang, right? Well, that line that's shaped like an S between the middle, that's the Tao. And the goal is to get on that line. And ultimately, if you want to know what I teach in a nutshell, not too much, not too little. Not too much exercise, not too little. Not too much food, not too little. Not too much sex, not too little. Not too much drugs, not too little. Not too much coffee, not too little. That's how you live. And if you want to know how to find peace and you want to know how to crack that ego open, just remind yourself, not too much, not too little. And every now and then, hey, it's okay to fall off the horse.
Not too much, not too little. I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
I can get down with that. We can
have it on a
that
t-shirt.
happen.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure we're both ready to sign up. You got us amped to start diving into the Spirit Gym. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
myspiritgym.com.
All right, we will
myspiritgym.com, and I named it that for a reason.
Because it's ours, mine.
Because it's yours. It's yours, right? When you go in there, it's you that's doing the study. It's you that's asking the questions, and it's you that's growing. So it is really an investment in yourself. And when you invest in yourself, you've automatically invested in me, you've invested in everybody else, and you've invested in the plants, the birds, the bees, the flowers, and the trees. Because there's no way you can study those lessons without waking up on many levels. It's ultimately impossible. And I've had at least 18 reviewers of these chapters, highly intelligent people like Kyle Kingsbury, Nathan Riley, James Tunney, Jason Picard, many others, even my most advanced students. And the most common comment that I get back is this book series is changing the entire way I see my life. And that's what it's supposed to do, right? And so my dream, like I don't want to be anyone's daddy. I don't want to be anybody's guru. I only have one goal: give you the tools you need to create freedom for yourself, get clear on what your dream is, and step into your own shoes. And my goal is that you do not need me. That's always my goal for all my patients and clients. I want you to not need my help. And if you look at the testimonials on that page, you'll see a lot of people who I've helped through some really tough stuff in their life, many of which have flowered into amazing therapists and entrepreneurs and just like amazing people, world-class athletes, you name it. I've been at this for 40 plus years. So, as you guys have heard me say before, don't study health from sick people. And I am still able to build huge ass fucking rock stacks with massive rocks, and I can still outlift almost every professional athlete that comes to see me. And they're like, how in the fucking hell are you doing this? I go, because I fucking practice what I teach you, for Christ's sakes. I'm proving to you that it works. What else do I need to do? You want me to give you an article written by somebody else? Is that going to do it for you, for Christ's sakes? I mean, so I'm saying, hey, I challenge you to prove me wrong. And the only way you can do it is you got to do the training yourself. And then I will take it upon myself. That's always been my rule. Do what I taught you to do. If it doesn't work and you actually did what I taught you to do, it's up to me to figure out where it went wrong. And I always would do that. So, I think too, another part is having a community of people that are as committed to real, legitimate spiritual growth and being healthy and using their mind and creativity to their potential is really supportive, right? Because people, look, I've only spent an hour and a half with you guys, and I already know right now it's probably hard for you two to go about anywhere and really let the cat out of the bag about what you believe, what you do, what you think's right or wrong, because it'll be 10 seconds before somebody's fucking all over you or criticizing you or sending text messages about this guy's a fucking asshole, he's crazy or whatever, right? Well, I say, fuck, come hang out with the rest of us crazy people, because we're the ones that are weird enough to actually ask the bigger questions and share with each other. And when if you've gained anything from this conversation, imagine having that conversation with hundreds of other people that actually are just as committed to you and can add something to you and make you go, oh my God, I had no idea. You could do that to make goat cheese, or you can do this to make your milk last longer, or you can find this product here. I mean, that's the freaking goal, is let's just get together and create a tribe of people that are actually committed to living and loving fully, because we need to send some examples into the world. We have lost our elders. We have lost our structure for legitimate initiation for young men. We've got the most problematic young men in the world and young women in the world. They're lost and confused. So I say, let's send some mentors out in the world, and I'll close with this. Rumi says the greatest teacher is the silent teacher, and the greatest lover is the silent lover. What is he saying? Everyone's watching. The more you heal and evolve, the more harmonized your inner self gets, the more harmonized your aura gets. You're walking through the grocery store and people are going, who the hell is that guy? I want to know what they have. And then they just start coming to you. And that's been true for me. My wife can tell you, I can't get on an airplane and go anywhere without some flight attendant who's never heard of me in their life coming up to me and go, I don't know why, but I just think I need to ask you a question. And then they start telling me all their problems, and I've written freaking healing programs on the back of sandwich bags and paper, whatever else, and handed them out. The point is, people can feel. They can feel and sense when you're for real. Everywhere I go, that happens. And it's not that I'm doing anything magical. I'm not, lighting myself on fire, doing demonstrations, or, walking on glass or standing on fucking nails. I'm just living out of my center and being myself, fully who I am. And that's all it takes, because when you are truly yourself, there's no longer two people inside of you. There's one. And that's called being authentic. To me, an adult is someone who says what they mean and means what they say. And we have a serious shortage of adults on this planet right now. So I think we got to heal the imbalances in ourselves and align the soul and the ego, so that the ego knows to take a backseat to the soul when it's important to make real decisions, whether that be how much medication to take, what supplements to take, who to marry, where to invest, how to worship. When you really realize that the whole universe is invested in you, you don't need to go too far to get the answers. It's just, how do you get the answers? And I can only share what I know to be true from, I'm not a guy that just writes a bunch of shit down by copying other people's ideas. I devoted myself to this my whole life. my mother joined the Self-Realization Fellowship Temple with Yogananda's teachings when I was 12. And I spent time with the monks. I went to summer camp with the monks. I've been meditating and studying. I did Tai Chi every day, sometimes twice a day for 18 years. I studied medical Qigong. I worked with some of the best shaman in the world. I learned from a doctor how to use plant medicines. I got licensed through the Native American Council and did countless plant medicine ceremonies helping people heal. I can only share my journey, but the difference is I actually have some real experience to share. And I, like you said, Richard, I know where the potholes are.
Paul,
I do.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I wanna say we do have the final four, but I know we both have some smaller questions we both want to answer. Would that be all right?
I want you
Or,
to hit me with your best shot, baby.
all right. Rich, you want to ask him the first one that I know I saw you eyeballing that volcano?
Yes, Paul, you put out at least one, if not multiple videos of what's in the bag.
Yeah,
And
because
it
people forever
jumped
ask
out
me.
at me
Yeah.
because at times I have had a maybe an unhealthy relationship with both cannabis and tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see someone like yourself that like you said, not too much, not too little, um, it piqued my interest because at one point in my life I did own a volcano as well too. So can you maybe kind of speak a little bit just about what's in the bag and how
Yeah.
you utilize that?
The first thing is you got to make sure you're using organic source materials or you will be vaporizing poison.
Yeah.
So that's step number one. I did a whole online training program on how I do it. So I'm using clean tobacco grown without chemicals. I'm using organic sourced herbs. I'm using Dr. Nick from Essential Oil Wizardry's essential oils. I'm using flower essence from the Australian Bush Flower Company and several others. I'm using animal essences from Daniel Maple. If you listen to my podcast with Daniel Maple, it's badass. The animal essences are mind blowing. And so I let my soul guide me and I mix them up. And one of the problems with the volcano is it'll dry the shit out of the herbs. So you'll breathe in a dusty smoke. As it cools down, that's why you saw me cough. Then the dust will concentrate because you can't avoid microparticles because it's blowing hot air past plants, right? So the other thing is there's no smoke in there. That's water vapor. It's dehydrating the plant. It's just a hopped up dehydrator. So there isn't any smoke. That's step one. The volcano was invented for medical marijuana delivery because they wanted to get the carcinogens out by removing the flame. So that's what it's for. Now, I use it to because I went through a midlife crisis when I was 50, and it took me 3 years to get even interested in talking to people again or wanting to do anything. I just burned myself out trying to help everybody, and I just had to stop and take time for me. But I made a promise to myself, and that promise is I'm not going to go to work anymore if I can't have fun at work. So one of my ways of reminding myself is that I'm doing this because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. Is I just blow a bag and celebrate being Paul Chek and saying, fuck it to the world. You guys can smoke whatever you want, drink whatever you want. This is how I do it. Two, it's really good to ventilate well. So if you're not doing breathing exercises or at least going to the gym and breathing enough, then you need to do that because you're putting a lot of this vapor through your body and you're getting microparticles of dust, or you're getting oils and all sorts of stuff. 3, I use the sauna every day. 4, I use the cold plunge every day. So I'm exercising, I'm eating well, I'm drinking the best possible water you can get. I charge my own water. I do detox protocols, probably at least twice, if not 3 times a year. I'll do a detox and a parasite cleanse. I sweat, I recharge with the ice baths. And so what I'm saying is, if you just smoke bags all the time, you don't do any of these other things, first thing that'll happen is you'll start getting real tired. Second thing that'll happen is your brain will get real foggy. Then your vision will start getting foggy. Then you'll start feeling like shit, like an addict. And it's just downhill from there. So, if you want to use something like that and get the benefits of it, you also have to take responsibility for doing the maintenance work so that what starts off as a good thing doesn't become the source of another disease or illness or burnout, And isn't that the same with all drugs and in food and sex and money? I mean, it's all the same game. Spirit gyms, that's what it's all about. You can get lost with sex, you can get lost with drugs, you can get lost with money, you can get lost with toys, you can get lost with television, with video games, with social media. I mean, the actual issue isn't whether it's a bag of smoke or a cigarette or a joint or DMT. It's, can you manage it intelligently? And the only way you can do that is if you have a dream bigger than you. Like, my dream is for everybody. I live not only to take care of myself, but to make sure my family gets taken care of and to give something to the world that when I leave, I can say, I left something behind. I left a footprint that says, stand here if you want to learn how to take care of yourself. So if we don't have a dream that gives us enough levity to overcome the inertia of the average person of society, then we just become average. And, as Carl Jung said, the average person can never be successful because by definition, you're average. I've never been interested in being average. I haven't fucking got an ounce of interest in that. I would rather die, quite frankly. If you said, Paul, you got a choice. I'm going to put a gun to your head and blow your brains out, or I'm going to make you into an average citizen. I would say, squeeze now, motherfucker.
Amen.
Because the worst thing that you're going to do to me is set me free, and I'll be cruising around with all my friends and all these other dimensions that I've been hanging out with and visiting for many years. So in a nutshell, that's how I do it. That's why I do it. And that's what it takes to keep it so that it doesn't end up being a problem.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned practices for connecting to the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
I got my blue blockers on. You got yours on. I am addicted to sun gazing. Doing my practice in the morning, sunrise, sunset. I'm curious if you have any kind of practice like that.
I did Egyptian sun gazing for 1 year, every morning at sunrise and every night at sunset for approximately an hour, sunrise and sunset. My soul directed me to do that. That was the same year my soul directed me to be a vegetarian for 1 year, which was very hard for me to do. Every freaking day I said, are you sure you don't want to eat some meat today? So funny enough, it was exactly 1 year. And all of a sudden my soul said, you can eat fish and eggs now. And I lost 26 pounds of muscle in like probably 3 months. It just fell off of me because I just couldn't get enough flesh, even with all my knowledge of, various protein powders and plant, combinations with beans and all this other stuff. Because my gene line is from Alsace-Lorraine, which is between France and Germany. And if the ground freezes in the winter where your ancestors came from, you better be eating some meat or you're going to pay for it because you're designed to run off flesh and some plants too, of course. But I did it as part of my practice, and I was having tremendous experiences. The one thing the vegetarian did is it because I didn't have the animal spirit in me, it opened me up a lot, and my voyances got very strong. But it was during the sun gazing that I actually started having these really profound experiences, and I'd be gazing at the sun, and I kept seeing this being who would show up like a hologram, literally like coming out of the sun. And he looked like a cross between a Middle Eastern and a Jamaican man. And he was wearing these beautiful clothes that were kind of like almost like African Jamaican, like a mix of cultures. And he would sometimes have this beautiful little hat that's all hand embroidered. And he always had this beautiful smile and these beautiful bright eyes. And it was just such a welcoming presence. And at first I thought, I'm like, am I hallucinating or what? And I'm a remote viewer, so I moved in my spirit body and traveled right up to him and said, "Are you aware that I've been watching you doing my sun gazing and I keep seeing you?" He said, "Of course I'm aware." I said, "Who are you?" He said, "I am the spirit of the sun." I said, "Well, are you like Jesus Christ or Buddha or any of those beings?" He said, "I am all of them. They are all embodiments of me. I am the spirit of the sun. I am the source of the matrix of life on Earth and in the entire solar system. You all live within my being. You are my children." And I said to him, "Well, cool. What is your name?" And he said, "My name is Umbakara." I said, "Oh, well, that's amazing, Umbakara." And I pronounced it and said, "Is that right?" He said, "Yes, Umbakara." And so then I went on asking him questions, for the whole year, right? But anyhow, after that happened and I met him, as soon as that was done, that session, I was early in the morning. I was standing actually in the alley next to the garbage cans behind my office, because at that time, with my schedule, it was the only time I could do it. So I had to go from there into work. And I said to my soul, "Is there any book in my library that mentions Umbakara?" And my soul said, "Yes, there is." I said, "Well, show it to me." So my soul walked me in, took me right around the corner, right to the section in my library where I had all my theosophy books. There was a great big double 2-volume set, and one of them was like a big glossary. And my soul said, "Go to page 435, I believe it was." And there it was in bold letters, Umbakara, the spirit of the sun. It gave a whole paragraph of description all about exactly what I just learned. And I went, shit, man, I had freaking goosebumps from head to toe. And so I knew I wasn't hallucinating at that point. And I've had I've had so many of these types of experiences happen in my life. That's how I know I'm not fucking crazy, because I built the Chek Institute out of being guided by these people. And so I just kept my relationship with going, and I painted a mandala, which is over there on the wall, that is a geometrical expression of the sun that I do my prayers to in the morning. It's one of them that I do prayers to, and I connect to Umbakar every morning and ask for support and ask for guidance with Spirit Jim. And you can connect to the moon. I meet with Mother Gaia, who comes to me as the Black Madonna, and she is a beautiful. She looks like about a 60-year-old Aboriginal woman, but she's incredibly loving and wise. And she really reminds me of my grandmother. My grandmother wasn't an Aboriginal woman, but I mean, just imagine this, like, really, like, you look into her eyes and you're looking at wisdom. There's no question. You're looking at, words don't capture it. And she tells me, she's been telling me about all sorts of things that are going on the planet and what's happening and what could happen if we don't get our heads out of our asses. But anyhow, I teach people how to do this right in the Spirit Gym teachings. I'm like, don't believe me, go fucking do it for yourself. Have enough balls to go stand there, even if it takes you a freaking year. But when you get someone like me guiding you how to do it, so Jimmy, here's what you do. I'm going to give you a little Spirit Gym training right for free. Go calm yourself down. Really relax yourself inside. First hour or last hour, sunlight's the best to do this, because the world's going through a transition at that time. In the morning, the heat's coming up and out of the earth. And in the night, it's coming back in. The energy is moving into the earth. So at night, the energy draws into the earth. So whenever there's dew on the ground, that's your perfect time for spiritual practices. Because if the environment's going through a transition, it opens a gate, so it's easier for your spirit to get out of your body and enter other dimensions, because the world's going into a dimension shift. So you just look at the sun and you hold the intention to communicate with that spirit, and you send the intention by holding your mind on the sun and say, Spirit of the Sun, it's Jimmy Airy here. I'm wanting to have an honest, loving connection with you and be guided by you. I want to learn more about the mysteries of life. If you can hear me, please increase the energy of my body significantly so I'm sure it's you communicating to me. And you wait. And when you feel the energy of your body rise up, you say, Spirit of the Sun, if that was you that just did that, please do it 3 times in a row so I'm sure it's you. And watch what happens. And then say, okay, Spirit of the Sun, can you appear to me? Paul Chek told me your name is Umbakara. Is that true? Could you appear to me? And just relax. And now the thing, Jimmy, you got to do is you got to be careful not to try to use your physical eyes to see Umbakara. Okay, this is the hard part. See, I've been doing meditation, a lot of stuff for a lot of years before I was doing sun gazing. So what you do is you kind of look at the sun without trying to focus on it, without having a focus, just what's called a soft gaze. And you see what's showing up inside of yourself inside. And a simple example is if someone flashes a camera flash at your eyes and you close your eyes, what do you see inside of your mind?
All white.
A camera flash.
Yeah.
So you see it's imprinted into the neurons because they're still resonating with the flash. The energy is still high in the neurons. So what you do is when you're looking at the sun, you see the sun, but you bring your awareness to what's inside of you that your physical eyes cannot see. And it takes practice, but you'll be able to do it.
All right. Well,
And
thank you for adding to my sun gazing ritual. I needed a spark. A lot of what you said, I've never seen Umbakara, but you can ask Rich. I've definitely had some vegetarian tendencies over the past 2.5 years. I was fighting, eating meat because everyone in my family was telling me to start eating it again. I started eating it, and I felt like I was fighting myself. So I'm kind of back to where I was, but it's still been a bit of journey, so I can resonate with a lot of things you said.
yeah, well, the thing is, there's a couple of things, but just hold the intention to meet the Spirit of the Sun and just open yourself to it. And as long as you can get the energetic yes or no, you can start by asking yes, no questions. So when you say, please, if you can hear me, increase the energy in my body, then say, like I said, do it 3 times. Then say, okay, whenever you're saying no to me, please decrease the energy in my body. So you ask it to do that. Say, okay, decrease it 3 times in a row. So now you have a yes, no. So then you say, okay, Spirit of the Sun, if the answer to one of my questions is yes, increase my energy. If the answer is no, decrease my energy. Then just start asking questions. And that will start deepening the relationship and you'll relax more into it. But with a little practice, you'll see at the right time. And then you can also say to your soul, your inner self, say, please turn up our inner vision so I can actually see what my eyes cannot see. Show me what it is that's here in front of me, but that my eyes cannot see, and ask for help. And whenever I'm having, like if I'm tired or stressed and I can't see with my third eye very well, I just say to my soul, please increase our inner vision so I can see, and just turn it up as bright as you can. And I'll tell you one more technique. This is powerful. Open your heart. Open your heart like a flower opens. Think of what it's like when you hug somebody that you really love. Like if you hadn't seen your brother in 5 years, that first hug, what would your heart do? It wouldn't wall yourself off from him. You would say, I'm
Melt.
home. You would merge into him because you love him, right? So when you're speaking to a spiritual being like that, open your heart. And to the degree you're having a hard time seeing inside, your heart produces a very unique form of light. And you can see in the astral dimension with the light of the heart. I've traveled all over in the astral dimension, all over this universe as a remote viewer. And whenever I can't see, I just open my heart and it shines almost like moonlight. And when you open your heart and ask your soul to illuminate your vision, you will be able to see a lot more when your heart is open than you can just trying to use your eyes or trying to see behind what's in your eyes. What I've found is love is the pass key to the entire cosmos.
I can't wait for those phone calls, Paul.
Hey, man, let's rock and roll.
That's right.
Let's go. Paul, one quick one, if Rich doesn't have anything before we get in the final four. You always have those cool pants
Oh,
on.
you stole my thunder.
Where you get them? What brand? Everybody's been wanting to rock those samurai pants for years.
Yeah, they're called Thai Fisher pants, Thai Fisherman's pants, or Thai Fisher pants. I used to get them from a place called mygohawaii.com, but I had to stop recommending them people because they got really shoddy and shit. I ordered a couple pairs that were so damn big you could put a freaking whale in them, and then some were too small. It's like, okay, these guys are just they're being disrespectful to the customer now. But if you search, for example, organic Thai Fisher pants, you'll find companies that'll produce them out of organic material. Some of the ones I have, I couldn't find organic, but I like the style and the cut, so they're just standard cotton. But they're very comfortable. And, they're very much like my Tai Chi pants that I used to use and Master Fong Ha encouraged me to use, because you don't want to wear any synthetic materials on your body because it distorts the light of your aura. Whenever your own aura passes through plastic, it distorts it. And it creates confusion inside your system. And the way I explain that to people, as I say, have you ever been to a hockey game in an arena before? Yes. Have you ever noticed that looking through plexiglass at the hockey players gives you a bit of a headache after a while because you can't see? It's like your eyes are out of focus versus looking through glass. Like if you look through a clean window, it doesn't strain your eyes at all. But when you look through plexiglass, your mind can't get a clean image, so it makes your brain tired. So whenever you're wearing anything with synthetic material in it, as the light of your aura is leaving and coming in, it hits the synthetic fibers, because that's plastic, and it actually distorts the light. So your body's kind of always got this gap in communication. It's like it's always having to try to figure out what's in the environment, what's being said. And then when your aura is leaving, it's always getting distorted by the plastic. And I after about a year of Tai Chi, I got so sensitive. One day, somebody sent me a gift of these cotton Tai Chi pants, one of my students, and a Tai Chi shirt, like the masters wear, like a martial arts gi, but made of this really fine, light material. I was doing my Tai Chi on the beach every morning, and I live in San Diego for a long time now. And it was hot out there. So I threw this Tai Chi uniform on and I went deeper than I'd ever gone. And I felt so much more, it's hard to say, I felt like I could breathe. It was like something had really shifted. And prior to that, I was wearing like athletic pants, kind of like, they call them parachute pants and nylon and various other, stretchy materials, typical gym clothes.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, wow, I wonder if it was my clothes I was wearing that were screwing me up. So I put my normal clothes on the next day, and man, I felt like I was wrapped in plastic. I was suffocating. And then I found whenever I go deep in a shamanic journey, I cannot wear anything that's not organic, natural fiber, because I feel like I'm suffocating in this stuff. So I also found, because I'm much more sensitive to my aura when I'm deep on a plant medicine ceremony. So I tell anyone coming to me, don't wear any anything with anything but natural fibers, wool, cotton, whatever, but no synthetics whatsoever. Women, get rid of your bras. I don't want your rib cage being constricted. I want you to be able to breathe. Don't wear lacy underwear that are made of plastic, only organic fibers. And I found people actually feel much more comfortable in a plant medicine ceremony when they get rid of all that plastic shit. So that's another thing. When you're doing your sun gazing, make sure you're not wearing anything that's scurrying the light up.
Man, Rich, you were right about those Bluetooth headphones.
Oh yeah, you don't want to use those. Fuck, you're sending a signal right through your brain. I don't know if you know this, but there's a researcher named Ross Addy who wrote a paper about this probably, I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years ago now. But he said that the average cell phone communicates signal strength is 1 million times higher than a brain cell uses to talk to another brain cell. So when you're on a cell phone and that thing's moving through your brain, you remember the old Maxell speaker commercial where the sound would come on, it would blow the guy out of his chair and the drinks would go flying off the table? That's what's happening when you're on a cell phone. On the inside, that signal strength is 1 million times what your brain uses to talk to itself. So it's just like earthquaking your brain cells. And the Bluetooth isn't saving anything because the signal's just being sent wirelessly right through your fucking brain. And I've looked at tons of research on that stuff. So you're far better off with a pair of wired headphones. And you should get biogeometry for your phone. So you got a symbol on there that neutralizes the electromagnetic pollution. And there's what it looks like right there.
All right. Noted. Yeah, I've stopped taking my phone with me on walks because I was getting sciatica pain. And then I one day when the headphones broke, I just left the phone at home and the pain went away.
Well, when I was doing Tai Chi, I had another interesting discovery, which helped me help a lot of people. I started noticing that as I was doing my Tai Chi, this is probably after about 6 months to a year where my body was getting much more harmonized and sensitive. I used to wear a standard watch on my left wrist. And I started noticing that tension would start climbing up my left arm and go up into my chest. And by the time I finished my Tai Chi session, I had a real tight chest and left arm. And I thought, what the fuck is doing that? And one day it had gotten quite strong and I went home to jump in the shower and I took my watch off and I felt the tension just start slowly dissolving. And I thought, I wonder if it's the fucking electric circuit of my watch screwing up the flow of my chi in my body and through my meridians. And so I put the watch back on, and sure enough, I could slowly feel it building up over about an hour until I was tight in the chest again. I took it off and it went away. So that led me to doing a bunch of research, and I found all sorts of people that were having heart problems. I said, get rid of your watch. A lot of them were wearing metal jewelry around their neck. I said, get rid of your metal jewelry. Every one of them noticed that their heart condition was much better. I started checking people's core function that had belly button rings, and I found that because metal is an antenna, so it's picking up all the cell phone frequencies and PlayStation and all the shit that's buzzing through the air, and it's going right into their body and overstimulating their organs and leading to inflammation and all sorts of problems. And I've done countless demonstrations on stage where I bring people out of the audience. I say, who has a belly button ring in here? Of course, 100 women raise their hand. And I say, who that just raised your hand has low back pain, menstrual regulation problems, pelvic girdle dysfunction? And there'll be another 60 hands. So I bring them up on stage. I do core tests on them, show that their pelvic floor is not working, the core is not working properly, blah, blah, blah. And I say, okay, now take out your belly button ring. And I retest them and they're normal. And I do tests to show them. I do stabilization and strength tests. So there's no way that I can trick them. It's obvious. And then I started noticing that if you watch, a lot of people wear nose rings, and that's sucking the electromagnetic energy right into one side of their face. And fascia is an electric, which means if you put energy into it, it tightens. Like a drum skin gets tighter if it gets hot and looser on a cold day. So fascia is an electric, which means it produces an electrical charge if you stretch it, but it's sensitive to electricity, such as life force energy and chi. But I started noticing that people that wear nose rings, their jaw would shift to one side. The orbit on that side would be smaller than the other side. And a lot of them were coming to me with temporomandibular joint disorders and headaches and atlas subluxations. So I started having all these people take out their nose rings and stop wearing earrings. And within 3 weeks, I would literally watch their jaw come back and their orbit open up again. And they would say, oh my God, it's a miracle. It's like somebody took a weight out of my head, but I didn't even realize it was there, because then it slowly builds up, you see. So all the electromagnetic energy is coming into the fascia on one side of the head, and it's causing that fascia to wind down. And a simple way I describe this to people, I say, have you ever been to an acupuncturist? Most people have. I say, have you ever noticed that they will spin the needle now and then? Yes, that's because they're increasing the energy going through the needle. But I said, have you ever had an acupuncturist go to take the needle out and it wouldn't come out? That's called needle grasp. And they said, yes, I have. I said, that's exactly what's happening. The acupuncture needle is an antenna for cosmic energy, and it's pumping what we call chi right into that meridian. And when you're wearing a nose ring or an ear ring or a belly button ring, you're basically doing the same thing, except it's throwing your body out of balance because it's overstimulating that meridian or that pathway or that region of your body, and it causes inflammation in the body, and it causes glands and organs to dysregulate. And so I've been demonstrating this stuff all the time. So take off any watches, anything that has a battery or any kind of electric circuit, wear no metal on your body when you're doing your sun gazing, your inner work, or any of that shit, and you'll get much further.
Noted. Thank you for
I
sharing
don't even
that.
want to get into what the dental implants are doing to me.
Yeah.
Well, they're making you turn your head into a radio station, but don't worry, I got some metal in my mouth too.
Okay.
The metal is less of a problem if there's only one kind of metal. But if you have silver and gold or any two dissimilar metals, it'll set up an electrolysis in your mouth. That's when you're in deep trouble. So if you got gold and silver, decide which one you want and get whatever other one out, or go to all porcelain. Nowadays, they have much, much more advanced technologies. They have about 150 some odd materials they can make teeth out of now. And a biological dentist will test you to make sure you're not having any allergic reactions to any of them. And they will test the spectrum on you so they know which ones are compatible with your body. But I really hate going to the dentist. So
Yeah.
I ultimately had all the silver taken out of my mouth. I think I have a couple of gold ones in there. I hadn't looked in there for a while. But the thing is, the best thing to do is be healthy enough that you can handle a little excess stress.
Yeah.
I'm healthy enough that I don't need to go run to the dentist and have my teeth pulled out and get rid of the gold crowns just so that I can be perfect. There's always stresses in our body. There's always stresses in the environment. So as long as you don't have, like, if you had dissimilar metals, I would say get that fixed, because I've seen that cause a lot of serious health problems for people. But in general, if you just, eat, move, and be healthy, right? It's all in there. That's the basics. If you got to do that. And keep your mind on a dream bigger than your problems, and you're good to go.
On a floor, Rich.
Yep.
Paul, are you a coffee drinker?
I drink one shot of my own very, very beautiful organic espresso with raw butter every morning, but that's all I can handle. If I go even 1 teaspoon more than that, I'll get addicted. And I've had to wean myself off of caffeine twice, and it was a bitch.
Yes, it
So
is.
that's my threshold. 1 single shot with organic butter, and I get to be horny and happy at the same time. I call it liquid sex. All my friends from all over come here just to have a Paul Chek espresso. Even the Italians say I make the best espresso. I make the best smoke and the best espresso, baby.
Sounds
Partying
like
Not
a
with
too
Paul.
perfect
much,
Sunday.
not too little. Yeah.
Are you blending that, or are you just putting the butter in and sipping it?
No, I just shoot it out of the machine, and I just take 2 teaspoons of butter and stir it in, and mixes up. As long as you got some it has to be butter, not ghee doesn't work because the ghee has all the protein taken out. So it floats to the top of the surface and it doesn't mix with the coffee, but the protein draws the coffee into it. So it mixes, it micellizes it. It'll actually mix with the coffee like cream or milk would. And it's super fucking good, man.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah.
Paul, you've covered this probably in depth throughout this entire conversation, but do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do on a regular basis to show up as the strongest version of Paul Chek?
Oh man, a whole fucking pile of them. My life is a living practice of that. I don't need to go to a church. I mean, I get here in the morning, I turn on the kettle, I turn on the espresso machine, I turn on the vaporizer, I clear my biogeometry cube, I get my tea and my tea bags out, I put my Sheila J minerals and my special cinnamon oil in my cup for my tea. And by that time, the kettle's hot and the vaporizer's hot, and I go blow a smoke, and then I go to each of my plants and I share love with them, and I do prayers for all the people that have touched my life. And I go to my mandala for the sun and I connect to the sun and thank it for guiding me. And then I go to my yearly mandala and I blow smoke and give thanks for everybody in my life and for my family. And if there's people that need healing, I do distance healing work on them. I ask for guidance and give thanks for, whatever I'm working on, Spirit Gym, Institute products, classes, whatever I'm building. I thank for all my family's health, for world health. I thank for my home. I thank for the elementals, the fairies, the nature spirits, spirits of the buildings and the homes. I thank all my friends. I thank all my staff. I thank all my podcast staff. I thank all my podcast listeners for sharing the love. I thank all the students of the Chek Institute for sharing their love. I thank Great Spirit for our abundance and prosperity. I believe that, we can create abundance in any environment if we just work with Great Spirit. It takes me about 30 to 45 minutes. I thank Ganesh. I thank all the saints, sages, and gurus of all religions. I thank the Native American Indian chiefs and all the chiefs of all the tribes and ask them for their guidance to be the best chief I can be. I thank Ceranos, the Celtic god of nature. I thank Madonna. I thank Master Rumi. I thank Carl Jung. I thank David Bohm. I thank some other spirit guides I work with. I ask for guidance. I get done with that. I go sit in my chair with a smoke and my tea, and I bring my consciousness to my heart and ask my soul to meet me in my heart. And I ask my soul to give me guidance for anything I need to know about that's coming up or that I'm working on, or how to solve problems. And I spend anywhere from 10 to 30 or 40 minutes talking to my soul. Then I just empty myself until I get my mind to go completely flat so that I can keep a good baseline so that I know when my mind's getting too chatty. And then after that, I just start doing my morning spiritual studies because I'm always doing research for different programs, or I let my soul guide me to which books, or I'm studying people's books that are going to be on my podcast so I can get ready for podcasts. And so I get in here I get up at 3:30. I'm in here by about 10 to 4, and it's usually 5 o'clock by the time I finish my prayers. Then I do my morning studies and my research till about 7. Then I check my mountains and mountains of freaking email and hit the delete button about 18,000 times in a row. And then I check all my videos and try to respond to as many people on my current YouTube video that are asking questions as I can. Respond to Instagram a little bit. I try not to get sucked into that because I just don't want my life to go that way. And then I go to breakfast. and I hug and kiss my kids if they haven't already come over here to attack their daddy and get some gummy bears. And sometimes we do shamanic drumming with the kids, and we call out animal names and they dance all the animals, and we sing and get them warmed up for their day. Sometimes Angie will come over here for an espresso in the morning early because she gets up early to do her yoga. And then once I have breakfast, it's full speed ahead with work. And then I just work the rest of the day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you
All time.
yeah, it's I thought it was gonna be right up there with Steve Maxwell, and it was for sure.
I don't know who
Paul,
Steve Maxwell is, but he's got to be cool.
yeah, he is.
He's pretty cool.
Paul, what are you listening to right now? Music,
I'm listening to,
podcasts,
I'm
audio?
listening, I listened to a few of my favorite podcasts. I forgot the guy's name. He's a mythologist. Oh, he's got a great podcast too. I just had a podcast come out on the medicine podcast with Mimi and Chase, which is Axe. They're great podcast. Um, so I was just listening to my podcast with them because when I'm doing the podcast, I'm in kind of a trance, so I don't often remember what I'm saying. Sometimes I'll listen to Danica Patrick's podcast. It's called Living Myth podcast. It's freaking awesome. It's all about different myths and issues of myth and life. The guy's excellent. He's an amazing storyteller. And sometimes I listen to Kyle Kingsbury's podcast. Sometimes I listen to Amy Fournier's podcast, which is Awakening Aphrodite. She's she's my business partner in Spirit Gym. Occasionally I listen to Josh Trent's podcast. Sometimes I listen to Sarah Westfall's podcast. Sometimes I listen to Nathan Riley, who's our family OBGYN's podcast. He's a super, super cool, super smart guy. I listened to, I think Kyle Kingsbury's podcast, I said. Wise Traditions I listen to once in a while. Sometimes I listen to Ben Stewart's various videos and podcasts.
Former guest.
What's that?
He was a former guest of ours.
Oh, he's one of my friends. He's a great guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Ben. Those are the main ones. I don't really have that much time, but I study a lot of audiobooks because I find it easier to listen while I train than reading because I don't have that much time. But right now I'm listening to Ken Wilber's new book, which I think is called Radical Wholeness. It's freaking very good. Finding Radical Wholeness. It just came out. It's very, very good. It's very important. So, I try to use every minute of my day productively so that I'm, not wasting time. Then when it's time to shut off, I shut it off. When it's time to turn it on, I turn it on. But I've always found it helpful to learn from, follow, and listen to the wisest people you can find. They're the shortcuts to an easier life.
Yeah. Paul, I think I know the answer to this, but do you have a guilty pleasure or guilty pleasures?
I don't really need to have guilt. I think probably the biggest thing I have to keep a rein on is I feel like I can make love to every beautiful woman on the fucking planet, And Penny and I had an arrangement. I went into my marriage with Penny 28 years ago, knowing I wasn't cut out for monogamy. So we made the agreement that was fine, and we could do what we wanted to do, and as long as we were happy together, we would stay together. And I never kept any secrets from her ever, because I didn't want to have a unhealthy relationship with her, because I really love her and she's a genius. But then, long story made short, I met Angie, who is another genius and just, super smart, very powerful shaman. If you haven't listened to any of my podcasts with Angie, my wife, Angie Chek, she's fucking powerful, man. but I just realized that I'd found a woman that had everything that I'd always enjoyed in all these women in one spot, that was smart enough to not be an irritation to Penny, that worked as hard as Penny. Penny's rule was, you can have as many wives as you want, as long as they cook, clean, contribute to the bottom line, and do not talk too much. So I finally found a woman that met those criteria, that Penny actually valued, enjoyed, and saw the evidence that she was very intelligent and very capable and was successful on her own financially. And so 13 years ago, we became a family, and that's who my child Mana and Zoe are from, is from Angie. And so the kids have two mommies, and they're very blessed. But even with two wives, I have so much freaking male energy in me that I have to kind of keep the reins back. And when you're, successful and well known, the women make it very easy for you to get in trouble. They make it, I've had women walk up to me many times in lectures all over the world, say, "Hey, here's my hotel room number if you want to come visit me, or stick a note in my pocket if you want to get laid tonight, come see me here," or whatever. But it's so I have to kind of manage that. But now that I've got kids, it's like I got to keep the dragon at bay, because I don't want them to be in an environment where their mother's not happy or the girls aren't happy. It's just too unhealthy for them. So, but if I have something I got to manage, it's the man dragon in me for sure. So I have to kind of look at God's beautiful beings and see them as works of art, and just be happy with a hug and a kiss, and try to keep it from blowing up on me. But I have a great relationship with God. I really, I found that just being 100% honest with God, to not be 100% honest with God means you're just a goddamn idiot and you don't know what God is. I mean, it's just dumb. Like, so I try to really manage my relationship with God, so that when I die, I don't have any fear. I can go home and know that there's no secrets kept, nothing I have to deal with the devil that I've created in myself. So I think that's what I teach all my clients and students do. Just have an honest, loving relationship with God. Whatever you think God is, be honest with it, because that's what you're going to meet when you die. Steiner says the first thing that happens when you die is you find yourself surrounded by people just like you, and you stay with them until you're absolutely sure of what you'll never do again. And so when I die, if I find myself surrounded by people just like me, it'll probably be the two of you and a few others just like us, and we'll just party. And when we realize it's time to come back to Earth or some other planet that's lost and confused, we'll start another spirit gym and everything will be great.
I was going to say, we can find out more at myspiritgym.com.
You can find a lot out there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of badass people in there. A lot of my top students that have studied with me for years, and people like Kyle Kingsbury, and like Spirit Gym's loaded with like serious committed people that are here to really live and love fully. That you're going to be walking in company that is worthy of being with.
Well, Paul, I think we broke the record for the longest episode of Airy Bros Radio. We've been waiting 5 years to talk to you, and it was well worth the wait. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all your work. Keep doing what you do, sir. You're changing the world. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very
Well,
much.
I broke the record for the longest period of time I've had to go pee. How's that?
Well, we really do appreciate your time, and thank you so much for sharing it with us, and your information. And it's been an honor and a pleasure to chat with you tonight, Paul.
My pleasure, you guys, and lots of love to both of you. It's clear to me that you guys are really living and you're on the hero's journey, and I'm grateful that you guys are sharing what you share, and doing your best to live true to yourself. And I mean, there's nothing better to do while you're here, man. You know, you got to go to bed with yourself every night, wake up with yourself and look in the mirror. And, you know, one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life is people that can't look themselves in the eyes in the mirror and say, I love you and mean it. You know, so I think if we all learn to really love and appreciate and value and miss the mystery and the magic of ourselves, we're home. No matter where we're at, we're home. And so it's great to be with you guys and see you guys are out there really like going for it in life. It's pretty clear to me. I can feel it in both of you. So keep it up, man.
Thank you. You too.
The worst thing that'll happen is you'll die, and then you won't have to look inside for Umbakara. He'll be standing right there saying, come on over, let's have an espresso.
Let's go.
And a smoke.
Yes,
He'll
amen.
say, who do you think taught Paul Chek how to do that shit anyhow?
Thank you, Paul.
Have a
All
great
right,
night,
guys.
Paul.
Lots of love.
Love you.
Talk to you